Okay, hello and welcome. My name's Hayden Crawford, and this is Cosmic Conversations. Now, I'm a wellness coach and spiritual guide, and I specialize in color therapy and numerology. And the purpose of today's get together with amazing, it's actually 8 amazing guys here today, is to really help you feel a lot more comfortable and confident with your own awakening journey, and especially if you're a guy, because we do see a lot in the wellness industry, and certainly, when we're talking about spirituality, a lot of ladies that are conscious now. But there does seem to be, certainly in my experience as being a wellness coach over the last 8 years or so, there's been a lack of cosmic or even conscious men. So this whole conversation today is going to give guys like myself an opportunity to be able to speak about what has happened for them during their journey and how it's either improved your life or maybe not, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to start off with my own journey, really, just to sort of give you some insights about why I've been guided really to be able to host this event. And it all started really way back when I was a little boy. Some of you may have heard this story before. On one of the courses that I ran, I think on 8.8, the Lionsgate activation and potentially the Andromedan activation course. But I, from a very young age, I was kind of made aware that we weren't the only beings in the cosmos. And my grandfather was a member of BUFORA, which was the British UFO Research Association, and he used to, when we were kids, invite myself and my sister into their bedroom, and he used to tell us all about like these cigar-shaped objects and saucer-shaped objects that he'd seen in the sky. And as a kid, I was fascinated by this, but I was always a little bit like, oh well, I'd love to see it myself one day. And of course, sure enough, many years later on, I was 16 when I had my first experience with what I would call something that I couldn't explain, and it really was just that. It was I was living in a hamlet in a place called Scutterskelf in North Yorkshire, just a little hamlet really out of the way in the sticks. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I saw a face looking down at me, and it was as clear as day. I was fully awake, and it was a little bit scary, to say the least. It was quite a frightening looking face, like a bit like an old woman or an old man with kind of hollowed out eyes, and sort of something that you would imagine that you'd see in a bit of a horror film. And it freaked me out. So I jumped out of bed and I tried to put the light on in the hall, and the bulb blew. And yeah, it was just a really unpleasant experience. I was banging on my parents' door saying, look, help, something in my room. And all they said was, oh, just go back to bed. And I was like, oh, thanks for that. That's support for you. So during that period as well, I started seeing lights in the sky. And these were lights that just appeared out of nowhere, big white lights that would flicker on and off. And also they would change color. So they would go amber in color, and then there would be white, and then there would be a few of them, and then there would be one of them, and then there'd be none, and then they would all of a sudden come back on again, and they would be above the Cleveland Hills. So I was kind of viewing these, and even at the time, I remember opening up a dialogue with them, sort of saying, I could hear them saying to me, oh, we're always here, but you have to get on the same vibration as us. And I didn't really even know what that meant, but I was just like, okay, so if I just maybe meditate or something, or go into a quiet space, then they'll appear. And I almost had a relationship going on with these lights in the sky. Like they would appear when I'd say appear, they'd disappear when I'd say disappear. And it'd be like, what? How's this even happening? So years later on after that, I found myself on a tabloid TV show called The Y-Files, which was at One Canada Square in Canary Wharf. It was live TV. So it was the Mirror Group newspapers TV department. And I was working on a show, as I said, called The Y-Files, and it was researching hundreds of cases in Wiltshire and in and around England of people that had claimed to have had close encounters. And everybody that I spoke to, and I'm pretty intuitive, everyone that I spoke to sounded normal and like they were telling the truth, although their stories were really phantasmagorical. But it was an eye-opening kind of experience. And then again, you know, sort of years later on, I was in my 30s, my late 30s. I was in Egypt on holiday over New Year with my husband. I woke up in the night and that face was there looking down at me again. And, you know, it was the same face. It was really scary. I jumped out of bed again. I was freaking out. And, you know, and now when I look back at that on hindsight, I feel like, oh, it's interesting because, you know, it was in Egypt, you know, of all places for it to happen again. And this was almost like confirmation that what I'd seen when I was 16 was real. But my Andromedan awakening only happened around about 6 years ago now, when I'd had my midlife awakening. I got out of corporate IT recruitment and I needed to change my life, and I reinvented myself, sold my house and moved down to the Southwest. And during that time, I woke up in the night. I was sleeping really badly for about 3 or 4 weeks, couldn't sleep at all. And I just ended up asking, where am I from? I don't even know why I was doing that. And all I was told was I'm from Andromeda. And I didn't know what Andromeda was. I didn't even know it was a constellation or a galaxy at that point. I literally thought it was something from Star Trek. So I started researching it. And of course, you know, then really started stepping up my investigation of starseeds, all the galactic races, and the Ashtar Galactic Command and the Ascended Masters, etc., to see how it all ties in together. And it led to discussions with some really fantastic pioneers of cosmic consciousness, such as Freddie Silver and Christine Day and Kieran Cullen from Larkmore and Scott Matthias, Valerie Barrow, etc., And of course, you know, during the work that I've been doing over the years, I've met all you guys, and you know I've met, you know, some really inspiring people, but I haven't met that many inspiring men that have really touched me in some way. And you are, you know, some of the guys that I've met along the way that have really sort of encouraged me and inspired me to keep on going with what I'm doing. And you know, and that's why, you know, I've brought you here today as a collective, really just to share your own awakening experiences and to see what commonalities there are between my experience and your experiences, to make it feel a bit more normalized, you know, for people that are having these, you know, these encounters, or they're going through these times in their life which don't seem to make any sense whatsoever. So we know that the 3 biggest questions that humanity have got are still, where did I come from? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? So, you know, I'm hoping that some of the conversations that we have today are going to help us answer some of those questions. So first of all, I just want you to put your hand up, put your hand in the air, if you've had some sort of unusual experience that you are unsure about, or that you can't explain, or that you'd like to, you know, that you'd like to share and speak about. So does anybody feel like they've had an unusual experience like that? Yeah, I think all of you are here because you've had something sort of take place. So I wanted to start off actually with you, Mark Passamotti, if I may. Mark, would you be able to sort of just elaborate maybe on you know, some of the things that I've been saying, or some of the things that you were saying just before we went live, and about your own journey as well, and yeah, just feel free to just be open.
I was saying that I think, you know, all our journeys are you know, I'm 56 years old, so I've been around for a while, and I think things happen gradually. Like I would just say, like things like before I met my wife back in 1993 would be the time I had my first, you know, it's just psychic reading, and they talked about past lives that I might have had with my wife, ex-wife, unfortunately now, but you know, that just kind of opens that little door. And you know, you go on through your life and you know, you do things. But then about I would say about 6 years ago, just was coming in, you know, got an intuitive reading from somebody and talked about, like, you know, having guardian angels. And that was like like, wow, you know, that kind of just blew my mind. You mean I have this guardian angel that sits behind me and like, or, you know, so just like hearing about that and having that, all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's more to me than just this 3D person, you know, that I'm sitting here. And, you know, and it was interesting. I don't know if you guys know about Course in Miracles. You know, you have to break through the religion part, right? You know, there's a lot of guilt and shame and things. I was raised Catholic, you know, so it was very much, you know, you're do wrong and you got to go to church and all these things. And I was already getting a little bit of having some issues with that. Even as a little kid, I had, you know, just didn't quite understand that. But you know, and the Course in Miracles kind of corrects the whole thing about the fact that Jesus, you know, that God doesn't have, you know, shame, guilt, and all this. God loves you eternally, no matter what. So just opening to that, I think when you start opening to that, you realize, oh, and it talks about Jesus coming here not to show you that, you know, that he died on the cross, but that actually death didn't matter, you know. And then you start thinking, oh, that's really interesting. And, you know, do we have infinite souls? You know, I actually didn't even realize that most religions believe you have infinite souls. So reincarnation is just a little bit of a change from that, right? So over time, I went, you know, I'd have to say, just came across different groups, and then, you know, I got involved with you. I like right before you, I'd seen some writings about Pleiadian groups, and then I saw a lot of your writings about, you know, being a star seed or, you know, numerology, and I got my first numerology thing. And even actually, when I did your group in, I think it was in 2020, so like the summer is one of your like Lions Gates. And I came across, I actually met, you know, a good friend who was doing crystal grid work, because you're like, oh, sometimes people do crystal grid work in their sleep. And I was just starting to get interested in that. And I met someone through your group, and that was a really nice interaction. She was from Australia, and we've been interacting since then. Carmel, if you remember her.
Yeah, Goodson.
Mm-hmm. And so that started opening things up again more, you know, thinking about, you know, the energy and grids and, you know, how you get energy. And then as I started opening up, I realized that also there was a fear I had. And when you have fears, it's like, well, what's the trigger there, right? And I always had a lot of fear over alien, you know, the typical alien gray face. Like they freaked me out. It freaked me out just having, you know, looking at those pictures. And I actually came across same picture, but there was one with like a jewel. So this, I was in this light code group, and this woman was drawing them with a jewel in their head, and that actually felt really comfortable. And I asked her, "Who are those folks?" Because like I don't feel scared by them, and they were Arcturians. So, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. So why are the Arcturians like, why don't I feel scared with that view? And then I didn't. And then I started thinking about an experience. I had this like nightmare that I thought it was a nightmare, but it was the worst experience of my life when I was about 7, 8, 9. I can't remember the age I was, but like I felt like, you know, that and I thought it was Frankenstein, you know, I had come through, I lived in a garage converted into a room at my house. And I thought that, you know, they came through the door, you know, like disappeared the door and came through it. And I, you know, and Frankenstein was going after me. That's how I thought about it. And I realized that I saw a picture of this gray that looked like, that is like 6 feet tall and looks like Frankenstein. It was actually a gray that like is really good at surgery and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's really what was going on, because I remember distinctly like the door, like the whole wall kind of dissolving. And then, you know, people, and, you know, what I thought was Frankenstein walking through the door, but realized that that was probably actually potentially an abduction. I mean, I've had intuitive readers talk about that. I did a QHHT session and got more insights into that, and kind of have a visual, but don't remember a lot of it. But you know, it was clearly an experience there that for the longest time I just thought was a bad nightmare, but obviously was, you know, an abduction of some kind. And of course, you know, unfortunately, any input I have on that is just like, well, that was just an experience for you to have this experience. But I guess maybe the fact that I identified that I had this fear, where this fear from these aliens came from, because once I identified that, I know it took another 6 months, but I no longer have that fear again. So I think once realizing that, oh, well, maybe that's what the experience was, even if I don't remember it, 100%, but it certainly made sense to me that that's what's going on. And, and I've just continued to do different things. And I loved your Andromedan thing where we broke the armor off. I think that really helped open me up too, to just expanding. I don't know if
Brilliant.
it's a good place to stop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting because, you are, somebody that would probably be classified as being quite like mainstream, I guess, prior to your awakening experience, really, because you're a GP, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'm a physician, although recently retired from civil service, in the military as well. So yeah, very typical, just person hanging around. You would think, oh, hey, I got alien abducted when I was like 8 or 9 or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
So do you feel like it's the way that you're evolving now? Are you happier, like within yourself?
Yeah, I have to say that it's really interesting. If reading the Course in Miracles and getting rid of all the guilt related with religion, I became 10 times more spiritual with God after I got rid of all the guilt and shame and stuff that was associated with religion. I allowed my spirituality. It allowed my spirituality to grow. And then you start reading, recently I'm reading books by Dolores Cannon that you had recommended, A Convoluted Universe. And you just realize, holy moly, like the world is so complex. But yes, I'm definitely more joyful. That's the answer you're looking for.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, it might not be the case, but it's lovely to see you seem in yourself to be lighter and, a spring in your step. And, it seems like, this whole process has helped you to kind of really reconnect with the truth of who you are.
It's taken time, but yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I also, worked. I recently got divorced over the last year, so I had to work through that. But that also was just part of this growth as I moved in a certain direction. If my wife moved in the same direction, great, we would have moved together. But we really kind of moved in different directions, and it was just time for us, unfortunately, to move in those different directions. So.
Okay, wonderful. So I want to go to you next, Chris. And I'll be interested to find out, what's gone on for you? Like, how's, have things been similar, or has it been very different for you?
I would say very different. I only woke up when I'm 30 years old now. I went for my awakening in 2020 in lockdown. So I was 28 at the time. Before I woke up, I was quite, I never really looked into any alien stuff or UFOs. I was mostly just, I'd like to say, a normal person who worked, who, loved his family, but never really into any of the spiritual stuff. In 2020, I went through an experience of, I'd like to say, deep depression. I was very unhappy with myself. I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like how I presented myself to people. I didn't have a purpose in life. I was very upset and very, I'd like to say, depressed, if I can be honest now. And sort of in lockdown, they shut everything off. So I had to sort of force to look at myself in the mirror and say, what do you want to do in your life? What do you want to be? Why don't you like yourself? So I sort of went through an inner journey of just saying, right, I'm not happy. I want to change my life. I want to do something positive. I want to be proud of myself. I want to make my family proud. So I just remember, because I love to go to the gym, it really helps me. And they shut the gyms off. So I was training outside in my old house, my back garden. And I don't know why, but as I was training, I was really, really upset this day. And I remember looking to the sky and I just said, help me, please. If there's anyone out there, I need support, I need help, I want to change my life. And that was when it got really exciting and my life started to sort of change dramatically. A few days went by I felt nothing of it, because to me, I didn't even know if I was talking to anyone. I didn't know if there was a God. I didn't know if there was anything. I never really looked into it. And then every single day for 5 weeks straight, 11:11, no matter where I was, if it was on my car radio, if it was on my phone, it could have been anywhere, no matter what, it was 11:11 every single day. So I started to, after 3 or 4 weeks of seeing it every day, you know, I was getting excited and I knew something was happening, but I didn't quite know what it meant, what I'm supposed to do. So I started to research 11:11 angel numbers, what does it mean? And then I started to get really excited, because the messages that were coming is like, you are beginning to change, you are awakening, we've heard your thoughts, we've heard your prayers, whatever you want to say. And then I just started to get really excited that, okay, someone heard me, my life's going to change, I'm going to do something productive with my life. And I'd say it was like walking on stepping stones, one little bit at a time. It's learning something new every day. And crazy things have happened since, synchronicities, signs, crazy dreams, crazy meditations. But it was sort of like I say about stepping stones. One day, because I ate meat, I never meditated at all, I never prayed or anything like that. And one day I'd wake up and go, right, it's time to meditate. And I had no idea where that came from. It was just sort of flicking a switch and then going, right, okay, I'm going to do that now. And then the next month it was sort of, I'd wake up and go, I don't want to eat meat anymore. I've just seen a video, something had come up like an animal being killed or something. And then I go, right, okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to go vegetarian. And I have been ever since. I think it's 3 years this year, I'll be vegetarian. So it was almost sort of like, I don't know if it was intuition or myself telling myself that, you know, this is what you need to do. I don't know, but yeah, it's just like stepping stones, waking up and everything. And then one day I'd wake up, it'd be, okay, you need to go and study Reiki or do numerology with you. Or so, yeah, that's sort of my story in a nutshell. I've been awake now 3 years. So
what I love about that, Chris, is the fact that you know, when you were at your lowest, you asked for help and you felt heard.
Yeah. I mean, when I asked for help, it was sort of like, I didn't actually know I was going to be heard. So that's what the exciting bit for me was, wow, there's something more out there. There's a higher power, or whatever you want to call it, that's just listened to me and wants to help me. So that's, for me, that was positive. Right, I'm going to give it everything now. Whatever I need to do, let's go and find out because what really was affecting me with depression was not having a purpose in life. I had a family. I was engaged. I have a beautiful little son, which I love the bones of, but I still didn't feel satisfied. And I knew there was more for my life. So to finally have that answered, like, yes, you do have a purpose and we will support you with it, meant everything to me. And it gave me satisfaction. And every day, I just love waking up in the morning and knowing that I have a mission, I have a purpose in this life to, if it's to go within and raise the vibration of myself, or if it's to help others. I've done so much in 3 years to sort of raise the vibration of the planet. If it's giving a little bit of money to a homeless person on the side of the road, or if it's talking to someone who has a problem, a friend or a family member, I know that I'm always helping someone, which is ultimately making me feel good as well. So
wonderful.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Sort of my story.
Being of service, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest purposes of all, I think. So that's awesome. Anthony, I want to come to you next, actually, because I know that you've been dying to share your story, and I've been dying to hear it as well, because I know from what you said on 8/8 that you've actually had a relatively close encounter that led to your spiritual awakening, haven't you?
I have. You asked right at the start, have you had any sort of weird experiences? And I was like, would your whole life count as a weird experience? From the very beginning, like being young, the things I used to feel internally, as if like, I don't know, I was just born with this intuition, like nothing could deceive me. I just knew things from an early age. Like, I went to a Catholic primary school and nothing ever resonated. There was like, either the story was either purposely told wrong or mistranslated or something, but what we were learning was not correct. Just lies and stuff like that. I could just see straight through all of it when I was just so young. And I remember just knowing that I was different. I just felt it. It was an inner knowing. I knew that I had the ability to heal. So despite not having any context at that age, what that even means, it was just something that I felt. So yeah, I was just different, man. My competitive nature was incredible. I was sort of, I guess, the boy who had it all at a young age. You know, I was strong and fearless, and just, I was good at everything that I did. Like, nothing seemed hard. And then, you know, these life traumas begin to happen, and there was so much involved with like body image and stuff like that. And then it just spiraled out of control from probably like the age of, I don't know, like 11 to 12. And it stopped. Like, I snapped out of it probably at the age of like 26. So like probably like 15 years. And it was from a psilocybin, a mushroom journey, and it happened completely by accident. There was no intention at the time. And so I was laying down on my bed, just relaxing by myself. And I started to have this feeling like I wasn't okay. And I was like, for me, like, I'm like really experienced. I know that I'm physically safe, but I just couldn't shake this feeling that I wasn't okay. And that feeling ended up turning into like a knowing. Like, it went from thinking I couldn't figure it out to I had a full-blown epiphany that I was not dealing with life, and that I hadn't dealt with the past 15 years, and it was right in front of my face, and I couldn't deny it anymore. It was just right there. So I guess you could say that was the first bit of awakening, where my fight or flight was broken, and I was now conscious and back in control. And I was like, wow, you know, what just happened? And I was so, my awareness, you know, regained. And then ever since then, and many mushroom journeys since, which have all been with the intention of healing, and I've just had so many truths unlocked within me. And I've been shown that there's other people like me out there. I've essentially seen, which sounds ridiculous, but everything. I've experienced infinity. I've seen everything about everything, which by definition of infinity is insanity. To have seen everything is insane. And the human mind can't process something that's infinite. Otherwise, once you get stuck in an infinite loop, you can't get out of it. But yet, here I am. So, and then ever since then, you know, I decided to quit my job, and last year, and then I went away off-grid camping for a little bit. And this is where I first heard about the term starseed. It was actually on my drive out there. I'd never heard of the term before. I wasn't attached to anything spiritual. I was driving out there, and I got a message from my mum saying, it was something from Facebook about starseeds. She goes, "This sounds just like you." So at the time, I had a quick look. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Spent 3 weeks camping, came back, and then looked deeper into it. And I was like, I was sort of dumbfounded. It was uncanny how much the Syrian starseed sounded like me. I was like, it even shocked me. I was like, that's sort of ridiculous. And, you know, that's really where the journey started. And then my intuition has just since then, it's just developed again. And it's like all the things that I had when I was younger are slowly coming back, because they were shut off for so long that it was virtually like I lost them. So now it's like, it's coming back. But now my mental development is, because as a child, you don't know how to harness these things. They're just what you feel. But now as, you know, I'm an adult, and now that they're coming back, it's all very interesting. I had an experience just recently over the Christmas break, which it blew my mind. So I woke up one day and I had the ringing in my ears, and it was like, you know, pretty loud. But then as I focused on it, it got even louder. So I'm awake at this point, my eyes are closed. And then I've heard about it being like something trying to contact you, maybe angels or a higher being. And so I tried to ask her, what's the message? Like, what are you trying to say? And at the time I got nothing. But then as I still focused on the ringing, a whole vibration of energy just went over my whole body, which is very cool at the time. You know, I'm very excited about this. And then the next day I woke up again to this loud ringing in my ears. And this time as I tried to focus on the ringing, I got an actual voice came through, which was to me, it caught me completely off guard. I wasn't expecting something like that. And it told me, go, complete your mission, which was, yeah, again, just something incredible. And then a few more experiences since then. I'm skipping so much of this. There's so much to talk about.
I understand.
Dr.
It's
Stephen
almost
Greer plays a massive part. My non-Norse health wasn't well when I first found out about Dr. Stephen Greer and the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Now, during that movie, there's an older guy who speaks about, because he wears a hearing aid, worn it his whole life. He said he used to get bullied about it. And if you're connected to your heart, you can see this isn't like an act of fake crying. This guy it really got him emotional. And this is a guy who meditates, who managed to contact an ET, who was a healer. And since that day where he asked for help, he's never worn a hearing aid since. And that was the first moment that I actually knew in my heart. I didn't have to be told. I didn't have to think. I felt my intuition tell me that that was true. So when I knew that that was real, I was like, I have to help my non-Norse. I have to get in contact with these things. I want to get them to help him. Now, it's probably been 2 or 3 years since then. I was frustrated for so long because nothing was happening. But my intuition told me that if we do it, or you are the healer, so if we were to do everything for you, you would actually limit you from focusing on your own development, sort of thing. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah, because they want you to develop as well. So if they're doing it all, then there's no growth for you.
yeah. I guess there's so much to talk about, but I guess that's I don't want to take up too much time with myself.
No, that's good. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I think that we can all identify with a lot of the things that you were talking about. It actually leads me on to wanting to speak to you, and Adrian, because I know that that you've had a similar kind of experience yourself, haven't you?
Firstly, I'd like to say it's great to be on board with a group of diverse men talking about quite intimate and unusual topics here publicly. So well done, guys, and I feel privileged to sit here with you all. And so yeah, like I was in my early 20s. I went to a meditation weekend and I had a bit of an awakening. Went, wow, what's this other world that's available to us? That was really nice. And then a few years later, we moved from Sydney up to the northern rivers of New South Wales, and we bought a property up here, my wife and I. And similar to Mark, I was studying a course in miracles. I was also reading the Right Use of Will material and working through that. And at the time, I was working as a shiatsu practitioner, and we were digging a composting toilet on our property. And I said to my wife, wouldn't it be great if people could understand what was the underlying cause of illness of their situation? And thought nothing of it. Anyway, that night we were asleep. It must have been about 2, 3 a.m. And my wife wakes me up and she says, Adrian, wake up. And I said, what's the matter? And she was a little bit distressed. And she said that there are 2 beings standing at the end of our bed here that want to talk to you. And I said, what the hell is going on? This has never happened before. We knew nothing of the kind. And she said, there are 2 beings here from Andromeda. They want to talk to you and give you what you asked for. And I said, what did I ask for? What's going on? And they then communicated a healing technique, which they called intentional healing, blue light. And they went through a particular process of witnessing other people. And well, that's interesting. That's pretty cool. And didn't think much of it. It was quite an amazing experience, but maybe we're just dreaming. Anyway, what would happen from then is I kind of had a Midas touch. If I would touch somebody on a massage, scenario, they would automatically go into a regression, whether they choose to or not. Some pretty wild things would occur that way. So in some ways, they just amplified other people's intention. If someone had an ailment, an illness, or an outcome, they would declare what they actually would like. I would witness that, and the dial would be turned up on that to either bring it about for them or bring situations for them to move through, to get closer to. So yeah, that was in my sort of mid-20s, sort of nearly 30 years ago, and it became very intense. I'm obviously a young guy at this point, and I kind of freaked out at the responsibility of it. I would touch my wife at night, and she would just automatically go into a regression. We'd spend 4 hours of her doing, whether it be past life, childhood, it would just occur. So it was probably, you know, a year or so later, I felt the energy was taken from me. And, you know, it felt like it slowed everything down. It gave me space to just be me, come to a bit of more of an understanding about spiritual processes, and move on with our lives. So more recently, I've actually got a lot more time, become semi-retired, and my actual wife was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Came to a shock to us. We live a very holistic, healthy lifestyle, and we thought, well, we're going to do everything we can here. So we went back and obviously started doing the intentional healing work, and as well as, you know, allopathic treatments and everything alternatives that we could get our hands on. And very quickly, she was able to reduce 2 very large tumors to nothing. So I'm feeling the energy around more. Recently made contact with Hayden. So it's only been sort of a week or so. I knew nothing about Andromeda until, you know, going back sort of 30 years ago, Googled it on Facebook or searched it on Facebook, and then your page popped up. And then here we are with some amazing men. So that's a little bit about my story. Thank you.
That's so lovely. I know, I absolutely love your story so much. It's so inspiring. And I'd like to actually go to Hugh next, if that's all right. Hugh, are you okay to start talking about your experiences as well?
I think, as Adrian said, I think it's brilliant to speak with other men and on the whole spectrum of what we've all experienced. And you're able to cherry pick. All right, you know, you're not alone with certain things. I was lucky. I got to text my awakening 17th of May 2012 to Hayden. I'd known Hayden whenever we used to work abroad for First Choice, which is now TUI, and we've kept a friendship for over 20 years. And I'd moved back to Pwllheli. I'd left a high-paying role in Manchester, and I'd moved back to Pwllheli after my mother passed away. And I'd taken a role where I wasn't really happy, and I'd just gone in there for the money. And I just reached out to Hayden, saying, look, I'm at a crossroads. I really don't know what I'm doing. Can you give me some advice? And he introduced me to Esther and Jerry Hicks. He also said to me to start meditating and just to look at my life rather in worry, but with the wonderment of a child. And that just changed my entire frequency. Like Chris in Manchester had a huge shift. I started to have confidence of not starting a side hustle, but through my meditation, I revisited, as you say, things that I used to do as a child that gave me great pleasure, which was just going for a little run. And on the back of that, I became a career tourist, but also at the same time, I developed the ultra running business that I've got now, where, we get runners from all over the world. And you mentioned about healing and so on. It's given me the ability to help people not achieve goals, but I'm more of like the endorphins, Anthony, like these highs that people will experience whenever they're going through like a movement meditation that they wouldn't normally experience in their day-to-day lives. And that might open the sort of enlightenment. Now, fast forward to 2019, I texted Hayden again saying I could feel a huge life change about to happen. And it was almost like a silent calling. Hayden says, I don't know if he says it to yourselves, like follow the breadcrumbs. And I was getting like little just vibes and so on about a change in my life. And I started smudging. I don't know if any of you've done that. And because I just wanted to clear my house. I'd never done it before, but I just had this feeling that this is something I need to do. I need to be doing this. So I did the smudging, and then the day after I ended up in A&E. Hugh, as if I was shot in my stomach. And that's when I was diagnosed with cancer. Inoperable. So that's going back to what Adrian's saying, inoperable neuroendocrine tumours. And they're a hybrid cancer where I've got my primary in my small bowel, and then I've got my secondary in my liver. Now, if we park that for a minute, the wonderment of running, which I wouldn't put myself as a runner, that journey started in 2012, and that's given me the health to go through what I'm about to explain. The hormones in the tumor excrete serotonin and different things which had affected my heart. Now, I was I travel all over the world doing ultra running and so on, but this created depleted what I thought was just one heart valve. So at the start of 2020, I went in for open heart valve surgery, and whenever they had me open, they discovered two other of my heart valves that had completely stopped working properly, which they fixed. I've still got inoperable cancer, stage 4, slight progression. But when I was coming out of, people say you see the light and so on, with life-changing surgery, mine felt as if I was just almost as if there was like, they see these big icebergs colliding, but they were on fire, pulling each other apart. And that was almost as if I was getting a sort of like a rebirth where, everything has become a lot more clear. You could go on to like Lazarus in the Bible and so on. But I think what I notice as well, we're talking about other people, I'll see shadows quite often around the surge of, especially the last full moon we've had in November. I felt such a creative rush, which is still going through me at the moment. And I just see us as vessels, with this awakening, that we're able to provide other things that aren't not necessarily a skill set of ourselves, but something comes through us. But, I approached Hayden in Thailand 2019, when I was obviously worried. I thought, well, this is it. I'm off to another chapter. But, with Hayden's guidance, and especially the affirmations that I'd use on, and the meditation that we went to was just, it was like such a pure clarity. You were actually there. I found difficulties before 2012 about how to meditate where you'd sort of like drift off, or you weren't on the right frequency. But this was, you're almost there. It's like a VR of the whole reality. So that's where I'm at the moment. I've just finished some PRRT treatment, which I've had a CT scan, and then that will tell me what the next stages are for that. In terms of non-medical stuff that I've been doing, I think that's something that I think me and Adrian might, have a chat about offline, not to take up your space and dilute your time today, if Adrian is receptive for that. Because I think, whenever I was first diagnosed, I was going to try everything. And then you think, well, hang on a minute, you don't want to be stopping something that medically might work with not enough knowledge. Because a lot of the time you might get a friend go, oh yeah, use CBD oil, mate, this will work, and you think, well, hang on, what is your background apart from selling it? So it's this, I think, the invitation from Hayden and meeting you guys, and then drilling down to Adrian having and experiencing it firsthand is, what brings us all together. So that was it.
Absolutely, I love that, Hugh, and it's like that people show up in places for a purpose. There's always a bigger reason behind it all, and I think that this is so needed, and that's why it's just about finding the right help at the right time. Now, I want to come to you next, Cameron. So, Cameron, you're in Hawaii, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Lovely.
And I've had the fortune to heal here. Speaking of healing and speaking of people to be there to support you, my healing journey had begun in I would say actually around 2019, right before COVID, actually. I had my husband at the time. It was a 5-year relationship of just actual pure bliss, and it was absolutely true love. It was very interesting to be at that time so feeling like invincible, like that invincibility fallacy, like, oh, nothing can happen. I at the time I was 30, we met at 2015. I was, about around 30 years old. And, it was a shock out of the blue one day to hear that my partner had cancer, a large tumor the size of a football, actually, right in the chest. And a shock like that just comes, there's no words really for it. So that was the beginning of of our awakening, essentially, together. And to be supported by so many people, I can't stress on how fortunate, through like synchronicities throughout the journey, that it was so apparent that we were being protected, we were being guided, and it was very clear during the whole time of that. And in that time, we had so many divine synchronicities happen, from numbers to just having the right procedures being available, to going to the right doctors at the time, to get him essentially to a specialist to get this removed, all the way across country in a private plane to like New York, like days before he probably couldn't have made it. It worked out so perfectly that it was just too clear that this was very it seemed like fated in a way. And eventually he got the tumor removed, and thankfully by a very specialist in New York, and we lived in San Francisco at the time. So having to deal with that, flying across country and deal with that, was right before COVID. Nonetheless, we're in a time where you couldn't go to the hospitals. Fortunately, we missed all that. And I think being there every day in the hospital, I think, experiencing that so young, a lot of people don't realize, it's all fun and games until you actually have to be there every day for them in that time of tribulation and test. So made it back to San Francisco, went through some therapies, different types of healing modalities, and the doctors were just like, he's not getting better. He might have a few months, he might have a few weeks, he might have a few days, we don't know. And at that point, it was an executive decision, like, well, if he has only that much time left, let's go to Hawaii. Why not? Just at least you can live your last days of your life somewhere in paradise. And this was in the middle of COVID. By then it was, early 2020. So to move to Hawaii from San Francisco in the middle of COVID, that's what we pulled off. And we moved in, I think it was a few days. We packed up and shipped all our stuff, and there we were in Hawaii. And having the fortune to actually have some of our closest friends we rented a house right on the beach, and that was some of the most intense last few weeks of his life, to just be there and to be in a room and to have him pass away in a room full of, you know, people surrounding by those he loves. Like, I think that was a very powerful way to go in a time where some people were not able to have their loved ones be with them during COVID. And so to have that experience with death, I think, was the ultimate transformation, because I remember the nurse, like, he looked like a fish out of water. It's like, well, he can't see you, but he can hear you. And so just like thinking, like, the last sense to go usually is your auditory senses. And, you know, some things like that, like, you know, well, going out with the music, like, just things like that, simple things that you don't really think about until it's at the very end. But that event catapulted so much development, spiritual development, that a trauma like that could not have otherwise, any other event couldn't have done so quickly. So in the past 2 years, I've had drawn on huge spiritual catapulting, from drawing on different mentors from all different fields, from, you know, Peter Sage, Tony Robbins, to Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza, to, you know, even Hayden and others, to learn different modalities of not just spirituality, but just overall life, and how to see life and health too, like a huge deep dive into health and nutrition and things like that, from even spiritual tools, from, you know, Egyptian healing rods to pyramids, to different crystals, to quantum hypnosis, to numerology, color therapy, astrology, numerology, just all these different kinds of divinations, even you know, mediums. And it's been a crazy journey in that 2 years, learning all those different modalities and learning. And my brain has just been a sponge, essentially, since then. And, you know, to have the going from, like, being surrounded by friends and loved ones now to feeling like a bit of like the hermit, like that journey is necessary to develop and to absorb those things, without the influence of external people, you know, influencing you. Like, you know, now I'm 35, you know, feeling like I'm a bit of what a hermit would be later in their life, where it's like, no, I don't want to go out. I'd rather just stay home and read a book. You know, and
join the club, eh?
that feels so good right now, but you know, you got to go inward before I'm ready to go out and to heal others, essentially. And because I feel like that's a bit of my calling, to, you know, especially learning the color therapy. It's like, it's all of these energy vibrations, frequencies, all of these, just learning more about them and how to think about these things in different modes, different ways to explain almost very similar things. Like, you know, light is an energy vibrational frequency, you know, from music to that being its own frequency, to even food, the food you eat being its own frequency, your thoughts being certain frequencies as well. Just kind of tying that all in together. And even then to like quantum physics, and going to, like, you know, things like that. It's trying to find a whole kind of system where it draws on multiple disciplines, I think is kind of where where my kind of focus is. It's not just one, but it's like a very like focused area in very multidisciplines, and that's kind of where my development is right now. Love Dolores Cannon. That's probably one of my favorites I'm getting into right now, you know. So kind of condensing all of that information has been my last 2 years.
Well done. You know, it sounds like you've taken something really positive out of a really difficult situation, Cameron. And it's going to be interesting to watch, your story unfold over the next few years as well, because I can just tell by the way you're communicating that there's a lot of purpose behind everything, that's going to come together in exactly the right way at the right time for you. So yeah, it's awfully inspiring. Thanks so much for being so intimate. It must have been so hard for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a journey, and I think back to your point. Yes, it certainly has been a thing to take in, and I know there is always a purpose. There's always a path. There's always a reason for things. It's not just random.
Nothing's random. Exactly. Nothing is random at all. I'd like now to come to Matt, actually, because Matt, I know that you've been sort of focusing a lot of your attention on quantum and multidimensional healing as well. So I think you might have some interesting things to share that would contribute to the conversation now.
Yeah, not sure how far or how deep I should go, because I've learned quite a lot about myself in the last 3 years in deep development, but had a pretty significant traumatic childhood from a young age. I was in foster care from the age of 6 years old until I was 18. I believe I had my first spiritual awakening in 2012. I started seeing ships in the sky, just Egyptian symbols, and basically clairvoyant visions. A lot of strange things there, but I was placed into hospital for 6 weeks and medicated, and that kind of shut down what was happening there with the spiritual awakening. But late 2019, it happened again. Sort of got involved or interested in, there was a pyramid in Gympie in Queensland that was related to the Seven Sisters, and I started doing ceremonies on the 21st of December when all the Schumann activity started spiking off in 2019 December, or 2020 I think it was. Did every one of those ceremonies for 3 years, and just got had a relationship that all broke down as well. I started seeing Reiki practitioners and shamanic healer and a druid witch, which I did some work with, and then just synchronicities come flooding in, angel numbers, 1111, all that type of stuff as well. It's actually quite synchronistic because I was born on 4:44 p.m. So when all that started flooding through, I found out my birth time too. So that was very synchronistic and strange. But I did about 10 weeks of psychic development with an Andromedan coach, and I think I've done a Egyptian mystery healing school, level 1 as well. Just had numerous amounts of shamanic ceremonies and really out there strange things. But I think when I was a child, I remember started remembering too. I used to see Egyptian symbols, numbers and zeros and ones, and just matrix grid lines, and just visually seeing everything like it was, literally a matrix. And I used to see big, huge basketball-sized white orbs floating around me, weird stuff. But I was never into spirituality. 3 years ago, I went through the whole line of being in foster care and going through different, churches and being placed into all of those with different families that I was in. But always knew that there was a connection within us, that all of these things I was taken to couldn't really explain. But just trying to get back where I was going off. But deeper into my childhood as well, throughout my psychic development, I had a lot of seals and stuff that were removed, and my coach that I was with did some pretty deep stuff, and I found out a bit of deep information about my timelines and stuff like that throughout my childhood. I was involved in a program called MK Ultra, all that kind of stuff. So I won't go too much further into that, but had some implant removals from this particular coach. I found out so much very intriguing information over the last 3 years of pretty much dedicating myself to this journey. So I pretty much relationship breakdown, lost a whole lot of karmic friends, and used to be a gamer. I did a lot of IT work back years ago, and pretty much sold everything. Just got rid of my TVs, everything. All I did was use YouTube and Zoom to do spiritual ceremonies for the last 3 years. So I've just fully dedicated myself to this journey because it's pretty important what we're doing. Healing lots of generations, working on ourselves. So
absolutely, yeah. It's interesting to see how much you've changed, through all of that and all those revelations as well that you've been through. That things that you were completely unaware of that have come to the surface, and the implant removals. That must have been really quite daunting when you found out that you'd had implants.
I mean, I've gone through so much significant trauma that I don't think there's anything in life can pretty much chuck at me right now that's gonna make me feel like I haven't already experienced that. In a sense, it's like kind of a superpower. You've already gone through enough crap, nothing can touch you. So it's been an interesting journey. It's like a roller coaster, but it's well worth it. Yeah,
absolutely. And it seems like everyone has got something in common here. And that is, so that was just Monty. I think he's just nearly decapitated himself. That we've all been through adversity, and I think that's what ultimately almost fast tracks your own personal evolution. So Eugene, last but not least, tell me more. I know that you've had some spiritual guidance. You're also very intuitive, aren't you?
Yeah, thanks, Hayden. Thanks for the opportunity. I think it's important to share what we learn and the journey. And I can see with everybody, I think we've all gone through a hardcore sort of journey, but at the end, I think we're much better off. So yeah, just a little bit. I think we shared so much, but So I think where mine started was so since I was a little boy, it's always been there, always been different, and. So I'm not going to touch with that because I can see there's a resemblance. But later on, of course, I start traveling the world and travel. I think it's a typical thing with Andromeda's running away, trying to find freedom, whereas freedom is within. So I think about 2014, 2015, I was working on yachts back then, and I saw this captain sitting next to me. Most beautiful yachts, perfect job. And he was just sitting and smoking and drinking and a miserable life. And I was like, I need a change. Didn't listen. Then I started working on another boat, and we picked up a speedboat, and a bolt shot out into my leg. And I was sent to gunshot wound. Came back to South Africa, got on my bike probably a month, 2 months after. I was like, I'm just gonna ride. And I was going up in Africa and quiet, that's my sort of meditation space. And I came back, met a girl. I've gone up so far to Mozambique that the guy was saying, listen, you have nice cheeks. And I always say that's my turning point. And I asked this guy, listen, please, what do you mean? It's like, no, you have very nice cheeks. If you go up further in Mozambique, they eat people who have nice cheeks. So like, okay, that's it. Start coming back, and so a few things happened. Got a girl. We got a beautiful little girl, which is also a crystal child that I'm busy guiding. And in that sort of space, it's the 8th of February 2020. I was going basically the lowest of low, and I actually saw a photo earlier when I was going through it. So that's going to be my 3rd year off. Hayden, you would know more about it. It's like a walking, or your sort of higher self, or more of your higher self sort of walking, going through dark night of the soul, going through that. And I just started asking questions. And I think and at that time, and I was just making notes there, I think that was the time that I had so much back pain that I couldn't do anything. I was running, I was doing motocross, everything, and yeah, so much back pain that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything. In the middle of the night, I had my little girl, walking up and down, up and down. And then I started listening to a lot of Joe Dispenza, and I was just like, you can heal yourself. So I healed my back pain, a lot of back pain, healed myself. And I was like, okay, there's more. And one thing led to another. And I started realizing, okay, I'm a light worker, and people say that. And, with numerology came through. Started doing a lot of meditation in 2017. And I think you either, you go through, your next sort of stage or your awakening, either by doing a lot of meditation, or you go through something horrible that's happening to you. So I think mine was, I was gradually going meditation, and then 2020, it was just everything fell apart, lost this goal that I came back for, and lost all my friends, all my everything, which was good at that time, because it just, just all the clutter started getting away. I lost it, and I started doing a lot of research, going through a lot of books, worked through all the Loris Cannon's books. And in my meditation, I just started getting, I'm an Andromedan. And I actually was in a dream. Then I started getting a lot of dreams, and especially before COVID, I knew, what was happening. Even one uncle that he's going to get really, really sick, and he's, close to death. And the same with Andromeda. You wake up and it's like the first thing I had a book, write everything down. What is this Andromeda thing about? And I started searching on YouTube, and I came across Hayden. Is like all the same thing with me. Then I realized, I was a light worker. That's somebody, I think, in 2018, 2019 was giving me a reading that you're a light worker, and you need to create change, you need to assist people, and then with Hayden, you confirmed, I'm an Andromedan, light worker. And where I'm currently now is I'm working through a book by Elizabeth April. So I think this is a stunning book for for everybody now to work through. So a lot of downloads, so I'm very tired, they're ringing in the ears, getting a little bit of back pain. And the back pain is she's just going through another sort of phase that it makes you relax and shifting to the 5D, and I can't remember, let me just see what's his name. He was talking about Christopher, he was talking about changing of diet, so if you want to shift to 5D, you don't want to eat all this heavy foods, start blending a lot of my food, smoothies, loads of vegetables, and that's just helping to, lift my vibration to 5D. And with that, that I've realized is sort of memory loss. And this morning I came across in this Elizabeth April's book, which is called Elizabeth April. You're not dying, you're just waking up. What she was saying that you get memory loss because of all the 3D. Your body is going through so much that it's your body 2.0. So it's just the 5D energy is so much higher and so much better. And I was like, well, that's why I was losing all this stuff. And but yeah, so many amazing little things that's happening. But numerology has always been in that thing. I would just I would meditate, or I would just have my guys would just say, listen, look at the time, and I will be like, okay, it's 16 minutes past 2. And then I would search on Google meaning of 16 minutes past 2, and I would come across this one channel that they would just guide me through it, and I've gone through so many of that, and that's just how my guides talk to me. And I think the big secret for me has been to quiet the mind, and of course, loss of ego, death of the ego, which is so important. That's the phase that I've been working quite a lot. I sort of give people advice now on that. But with that, it's just to quiet the mind, and that only happens after 15 minutes. That you really, really, the one book that I've read quite a while ago, he was referring to the arsehole in my mind, the arsehole in my head, which is good and it's bad. You know, you need the one with the other one, but yeah, it's just getting better. You know, it's just better opportunities, more is coming your way, and you just gotta not focus. You're not in control. They're guiding you. You just gotta go with it. You know, especially with guys. You know, we all control freaks. You know, we all, you know, it's one of those archetypes. It's just in guys, we want to control. So I think that was one of the big things I had to let go of. You know, we're not in control. You know, and the other thing which is quite amazing that I've read once is we've been through everything. We're just here to understand it. So everything has happened in timelines. It's already there. So it's just sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but just to put a smile on our face and say, listen, you know, it's happened. Let's have fun while we on this ride. I mean, this is the most amazing time. You know, in Dolores Canyon, it's like the three volunteers. So basically, you know, I'm the second volunteer to sort of help all the new kids or all the crystal childs, or, you know, all the you know, there's so many very different sort of ways of. So my little girl is a crystal, so I'm guiding her, but I can see she's just so smart, you know, just to say something. So the exes, anyway, she's moved on, she's busy getting married, and I think she's 4 months pregnant now. So about a month ago, of course, so my mom says that they've gone to the doctor to see, you know, if it's a boy or a girl, whatever. And my little Laura Fee, so she's like, mommy say it's going to be a boy, but it's going to be a girl, and her name is going to be Sophia. So yeah, I just found out this week that it's a girl, and it looks like they're going to call her Sophia. My little girl is 5 years old, you know, so it's just amazing how the one thing led to the other. So, you know, once you lose something, you always gain something to replace that. So it's not the death. Death is not always the end of the world, but it's just the old things that need to let go. And I think that's my spiel.
Words of wisdom, Eugene. You know, that's brilliant. You know, I think you've inspired all of us just by, you know, those last channeled sentences there. You know, it's beautiful. I loved everything you just said, actually, and it's made a lot of sense to me. You know, because we never stop learning and never stop growing. Never. You do have nice cheeks, and you've got nice hair as well. So, you know, credit where credit's due.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if your dog has completely demolished your cushion, but I've seen it all sort of.
It's gone. Yeah, I know it's gone. There's nothing I could do about it. I just had to let it happen. You know, and that's something my mum made. My mum made me that cushion.
Yeah, I just let it be.
It's all right. You know, God doesn't take it away without replacing with something else. So
absolutely. I think that's the most important bits that I can say. You know, you never lose something. You just letting go of something old that it doesn't serve you anymore. And there's always something better. Just around the corner. We just got to open ourselves up for it to enter, and that's it.
Absolutely. I love it. Brilliant. Well, I hope you guys are all up for getting back together again, maybe in a year's time, just to track our progress and see how everything's going, and to have an update or something like that. Maybe make this an annual event where we can get back on cosmic conversations and share some more wisdom. I'd really love that. You know, it seems like a nice vibe in this group. It's really been fantastic. I've loved it. And thank you once again all for sharing so intimately all your, you know, all these things that, you know, you've experienced along your way. And, you know, hopefully it's inspired, you know, the people that are watching this video as well. Until next time, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your night. God bless to everybody. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.
See you.
Peace out.